got people joining. That's great.
Hi,
Thank you all.
everybody. Thanks for joining. We're going to get started in a few minutes, just giving some people a chance to join. We have a hot topic today. If you're kind of scrolling on the gram and you hear us talking, we are talking about exes and their new partners. When you're co-parenting and your ex has a new partner, what are some of the issues? What are some of the things? How are we going to handle that? So Chloe and I will be talking about that in just a few moments. If you have any questions, if you are dealing with that and you have some questions and want to just pop them in, throw them in at any point and we will definitely get to them. So,
Yep. And if any of you have some more detailed questions or more personal conversations that you want to have with either of us, feel free to reach out to us individually as well after the call. Should we wait another minute just in case some people are still joining? And then we'll see. Probably people will be popping in and out.
Yeah, I imagine. Yeah, let's give it a minute and then we can do the little intro.
Yeah, sounds good.
Again, if you're scrolling through or hopping on, check us out. We're going to be talking about co-parenting with when your ex has a new partner and some of the issues. So feel free to join, pop in some questions.
And some of you may have joined our previous iteration of this event. We had a similar event about a month ago, and it went so well. We liked it so much that we decided to make it a monthly event. So on the first Thursday of every month, you will find Julie and I online for this specific event with a different theme, of course, every time, which we'll advertise on Instagram. So you will know what it is. And you're welcome to jump on, ask any questions, reach out to us. It's a great opportunity to have direct access to us and to ask us all the questions you've got on your mind, because we know that co-parenting after divorce is not easy. Do you want to kick off, Julie? You want to introduce yourself and then I'll introduce myself?
Sure. My name is Julie Beckerman. I am a co-parenting coach, and I work specifically on helping you find more peace. I work specifically with individuals whose exes are particularly high conflict and challenging, and help you to kind of find strategies to deal with that.
Great. So I'm Chloe. Oh, you might have seen that in the advertising for this. I am a certified divorce coach. I'm based in London, but I'm actually French. I've been here for 15 years. And I specialize in working with people, and in particular with expats, to help them divorce amicably, to help them divorce with less conflict. The objective being that the divorce itself is less painful, less expensive, and shorter, but also that by the time they're done with their divorce, they have a decent relationship with their ex and they can co-parent more effectively, always with their children's best interest at heart, and that the benefit for their children of having parents who can work together. So today we selected a very hot topic, which I think a lot of people have encountered at some point or another. If you've been divorced and you have gone your separate ways with your ex and you have children together, there will inevitably be a time where one of the two, if not both, meets someone else. And that can be quite tricky. It's tricky for the parents and it's tricky for the kids. Everybody has to get used to yet a new reality. And so we wanted to address that, because we know that there's a lot of conflicts and issues that come out of these kind of situations. I think just for simplicity's sake, to make it easier for both of us, let's just say that the father met a new partner. That way we can refer to, we'll stick to a simple and more traditional family model with a mother and a father, and we'll assume the father's the one with the new partner, and we can work on that basis in discussing all this.
Yeah, sounds good. And obviously everything we talk about, it applies in all directions, right? But just for simplicity's sake.
Yeah, exactly. So let's start. I think one of the questions that comes up the most, and that's really tricky, is how do you introduce the new person? When do you introduce the new person? What's your point of view on that, Julie?
Yeah, so in my instance, I think the when is really, right. So this is going to be the point for all of this. When a new partner comes into a dynamic here, it becomes a lot about that new partner, about your feelings. So making sure you're keeping this child focused, which is an obvious thing to say, but that can get very challenging. So I think the key thing in terms of timing that I would think about is keeping in mind when it makes sense for your child, not forcing it, not rushing it. You want your relationship with this new partner and the relationship or what your kids are dealing with to be in a relatively stable place, right?
Yeah,
So there's no rush. Why are we rushing? Once they get introduced, you can't unintroduce. So I would say take your time with it and not rush it in terms of timing.
agree. And I think I completely agree. And I think, every family is different. And
Yeah.
the essential bit is if the parents can agree on how to handle these kind of situations, ideally before it
Yeah.
happens. But
Hmm.
even in the heat of the moment, if they haven't been able to discuss it before, it should be first a conversation between the parents, agreeing how they're going to do it. Ideally, the mother meeting this new girlfriend before she gets introduced to the children, just making sure that they're both involved in that process of
Yeah.
introducing the new
Yeah.
person. And then they're going to want to consider who their kids are, right? Like what the context is how old are their children? How did they react during the
That's right.
divorce? How difficult was that as an experience for them and as a transition? But also thinking about things like, are they going to feel like they have split loyalties? Is this the first new girlfriend or have they been 10 before? Those kind of things. And,
Okay.
and also if the mom already has a new partner, then the children will already be introduced to the idea that their parents are going to meet someone new. So I think you have to really think about your specific context to
Yeah.
make sure that it works for your children.
I think what I hear you saying, Chloe, is it's not necessarily formulaic. You have to consider some factors like the age. And I think what you're saying too is if you have the kind of relationship where you can have a conversation with your ex about this and come up with a plan, that is your best bet,
Yeah.
right? Because if you and your ex are on the same page and you feel okay about the plan, then the two of you can make sure your kids are going to feel okay with the plan. The worst thing to do is, so let's say you're the one with the new partner and your ex is not on board and you just kind of go and do it anyway, right?
Yeah.
Those are the situations we don't want to get into. I want to just share something that I think can be interesting though. Um, if your situation with your ex is particularly contentious and they don't care that you don't want the new partner being introduced or they're not really interested in how you feel. Something to keep in mind here is you have, unfortunately, very little power here to control what your ex does with their new partner and your kid.
Yeah.
And that is really challenging. And I'll give you a really good example. You could have in your agreement that the other parent cannot introduce a new partner until a year or without your permission or whatever conditions you come up with. So what? It's in your agreement. Now your ex goes and introduces them anyway. Now what?
You
The
can't do
introduction
much
has
about
happened.
it.
You cannot control it. So it's important to keep in mind that when, in terms of if you can come to an agreement, awesome. If it's contentious, if it's conflictual, and your ex is just going to do what they're going to do, then your goal is really to focus on how you can help your kid go through that because you really can't control this a lot.
Yeah.
So the how and the when is I think really great to kind of come up with together, and then from there, kind of focusing on how you're going to help your kid get through it, which kind
Yeah.
of leads to the next
Yeah.
question.
But
Right?
actually, even before we go
Yeah,
there, I'm
yeah,
sorry, just to add to that, I think you're going to want to make sure that if you're the parent introducing, whether you've run it, if you're the dad and you haven't even discussed it with the mom, even then, the dad should still have his kid's best interest at heart, and in that context, they need to think carefully about what the best way of introducing the new person is, right? Even if the dad's not having a conversation with the mom to agree it, he should still think about how is the child going to react? How do I do it? Take small steps. Don't have the girlfriend sleep over, on the
right,
first meets the
absolutely.
children. Give the
Consider how
kid
your
time
kids
to
are going
adapt.
to be impacted as opposed to a new partner. Yeah,
Yeah,
go
I
ahead.
think that's really the best case fit scenario for everybody. I mean, of course, for the dad who's introducing his new girlfriend, he's going to want his kids to like this girl, but also for the mom, because even no matter what her feelings are, and even if she's feeling conflicted about it, at the end of the day, it's a lot better for her children if they're happy to go to their dad's house and if they like
Right.
this new person.
That's right.
So,
That's
no
right.
matter what feelings you're having, you have to kind of keep that in mind as really the center of your
That's
attention.
right. And I think going back to what I was trying to say, like, you don't have a lot of power in here. So you don't have to like it. What you need to do is find a way to make it okay for your kids, even
Yeah.
if you hate every part of it. Right. And that's really going to be the best, your best strategy, because that's really where you have control.
Yeah.
over this scenario. So anything else on the how or the why, or does anyone online have any questions about how to share the information with your kids that there's a new partner, when, where? I think our big takeaways here are you need to keep in mind what's going to work best for your kid.
Yeah.
It's not always prescriptive, but talking to them and not rushing it and being so urgent to get them to meet because your relationship takes priority over your child. That's
Yeah.
not going to be your best bet. And it's not going to work out well for that relationship either.
Yeah.
So, okay.
And I think the other big takeaway was just trying to manage it as parents beforehand, if you can, if you
Yeah,
have a
of
decent
course.
relationship.
Yeah,
Try as
that's
much
going
as
to
you
be
can
your ideal.
and also so that the new parent is not blind, the mother isn't blindsided. You know, she knows that this is going to happen, that the kids are going to meet the new girlfriend. She can try and be optimistic and positive about that experience.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. We do have a question. I see that parental alienation inquiry. I saw your question, so we'll definitely get to that. I think, Chloe, to your point, right? If someone gets introduced and the other parent doesn't know, you're sort of setting it up for some, right, some difficult conversations to
Yeah.
happen where your child's going to be
Yeah.
confused, and they're right. And now you're not putting your new partner or your new girlfriend in a good position to create that relationship well. So
Yeah.
so the question we got was, is there any evidence that 100% transparency, openness, and honesty with children is harmful to them? Um,
I don't know about any evidence, but I think, I mean, sorry, I'll
yeah,
jump in,
please,
Julie.
yeah.
I think it's important to be truthful to your children, but always with the caveat that you know them best. They are a certain age, they have a certain sensibility, a specific history around the divorce itself. And so you don't want to be lying to your children. So I completely agree with the statement that you have to be transparent, but you also need to share information with them that's age appropriate. So you don't want to be saying bad things about their other parent. You don't want to be sharing with them the detail of the custody conversations you're having, etc. That has to remain within the parental sphere. It doesn't mean you're lying to them. It just means you're keeping them in their children's world with their own set of concerns and things that are appropriate for them to be thinking about. And you're keeping parental issues separate. Do you have anything else to say on that, Julie? Sorry.
I think what you're saying too, I don't know if there's like the evidence, 100% evidence, but I think there's, clearly there's certain things that children just don't need.
Yeah.
And what your children information that's going to make them feel more comfortable and stuff that's just going to overwhelm them, that's going to be specific to your kid. But I would say, yeah, probably your kids don't need to know everything. I can't really imagine a scenario where that's going to benefit them.
Agreed.
So I think if someone's being completely open and honest about every little detail, probably some boundaries would be important
Yeah.
there. Does that answer that question? If that didn't answer the question, you can kind of follow up and let us know if we can answer anything else.
There
Um,
was another question that came by. I don't know if you saw it. It says the girlfriend is mouthing to the son about the mom.
yeah.
So what can the mom do in that context?
Okay. Yeah. So I think bad mouthing, I have a lot. So please follow me on Instagram, Coach Julie Beckerman. I talk a lot. I have a bunch of videos about what to do when your ex is bad mouthing you to the kids. And I think this is the same. So bad mouthing, what we want to do is rather than, right, first thing is you do want to send a message to your ex about what's going on.
Yeah.
Look, this is what I'm hearing. Give them at least the chance to address it. If you have that kind of impossible relationship where your ex is not going to give a crap, where they're going to probably throw it back and blame you for it in some kind of way, your next step then is you have to start talking to your kids about it. And what we do is we don't get into the story about what the girlfriend is saying. So if the girlfriend's saying, your mom does this, 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 and this, we don't start going, I didn't do that. What we say is, why is she bad mouthing me? We shouldn't be bad mouthing people. Talking badly about people is mean and hurtful. And really, we don't really need to be talking about that. Do you have any questions for me about anything that she said? Is there anything concerning for you that you want to discuss? And obviously, the age of your kid, you're going to use different language. But what you're doing is you're addressing the bad mouthing behavior as that's not what we do.
Yeah.
That's what she does, but we don't act that way. And then we address how they're feeling about whatever was said.
Yeah.
We don't get into trying to defend
So,
ourselves on the nonsense of the story. Does that help? And if you have something specific, and I can help you with this specific, but Does that help the person? If you have any more questions about that, please ask. And Chloe, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. You don't want to be engaging in that kind of, that kind of dynamic anyway. It's not in anybody's interest. And back to what we were saying before, it's not in the children. It's not relevant to the children. It's a parents' conversation. The children should not be caught in the feud that the girlfriend has with the ex-wife.
Right.
That's a conversation they should be having offline without involving the children. So I completely agree with that. And I think what's important for the mom to remember, because it's hard. And, first of all, you feel sometimes replaced by this new person. And then you feel like she's saying bad things about you and your child's going to believe them and not
Right.
love you as much. Remember that you can't be replaced. You're their mom. That's not going to ever change. So in a way, it's a battle she'll never win. So if you
Right.
want to
It's a
think of it
fight
as a
you're
battle,
not gonna, right.
you
It's a
don't
fight you
have
can't
to
lose.
engage because you've won already.
Yeah.
You're the mom, and nothing's going to take that away. And if anything is going to harm her, because the child is going to feel loyal to you and be, kind of put off by that kind of behavior.
Mhm.
Nobody wants to hear bad things about someone they love.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I see your comment that relationship with your son has changed, and I think, right, sometimes mending does need to happen. And yeah, that's why bad mouthing is really not okay. I want to assure you, you can kind of combat some of what's going on there. And if you're kind of stuck in a difficult situation, you can reach out to one of us and we can maybe help work in a little more
Yeah.
detail on how to undo some of that damage. And I think, Chloe, to your point, when you have a new partner in the mix, I think it's natural, especially, right, we're talking in this situation, the ex gets a new girlfriend, you're the mom feeling like this woman's going to replace, maybe they're the fun, that's the fun stuff happens at that house, and now you're like, okay, well, I can't keep up. If you're experiencing that kind of jealousy around a potential stepmom or new partner, that's sort of a sign of getting in touch with your own value, right? You may not be able to offer the same thing your ex or their new girlfriend can offer, but you have your own things that you can offer. I have to remind myself of this all the time. What are the things that I bring to the table? What are the things that you bring to the table, and feeling really strong in that? And then it doesn't matter if there's beneficial things happening on the other side, because that's great. Now your kids have lots of value being
Yeah.
offered. So that
Win-win.
would be the ideal.
I agree.
So I think, yeah, I think ideally, even if it's painful, the best case scenario is your child has one other solid, stable adult in their life that they can count on and trust, that cares for them. You know, that would be the ideal, even if it hurts a little bit, and and that's normal if it
It
does.
is normal,
Yeah.
absolutely. But I agree. I think if you think of your children, that's always going to be beneficial for them if that person's a good influence and a good person in their life. So we were going to talk actually about what happens if the child rejects
What
the new person.
in the
That
other
happens
way?
a lot.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and how do you handle that, as the dad or as the mom?
yeah,
Nobody wants that to happen. And how do you address that kind of, that kind of rejection that they're expressing? I mean, from my perspective, I would say that it's very important to understand what the child's feelings are, to speak to them, and to really understand what's beneath that rejection. Because sometimes we assume it's, they just don't like her as a person, whatever it might be, we're assuming. But it could be so many things.
right.
It could be out of loyalty towards you that they're rejecting. It could be that they still had a fantasy that their parents were going to get back together. And this is kind of the final nail in that coffin. It could be so many different things that are leading to that rejection. And so understanding what's behind it is really important. Just giving your kid, a safe space to express those feelings, because they do feel a lot of pressure. The dad's going to be even unconsciously putting pressure
Wanting
for
them
them to like.
to like them, of
He
course.
wants them to
Yeah,
like the new girlfriend.
yeah,
And they probably feel that the mom's not, loving it either. And so there's that sense, they sense all of those subtleties, and that influences how they behave. So really giving them that safe space to express their feelings,
yeah, yeah.
understand. Now, the only thing I'd say that to be really careful of, if the kid is saying that they don't want to go to their dad's house in this scenario because of the girlfriend, then that's quite a serious issue. You have to be careful, because there are a lot of places where you legally have to allow the child, let the
Yeah,
child go with the
yeah.
father.
For
You
sure.
cannot
Yeah.
prevent that, even if the child is not liking it and being very clear about the fact that they don't want to go. It's still not an option. So be very careful. And as if with, my underlying message across all of these situations is try to talk to the other parent, because that's where you're going to find solutions that work for the kids.
Yeah.
If you can both communicate and be open about what needs to happen to really help the kids through these transitions, because it's a
Yeah.
lot. They've already had to adapt to their parents no longer living together. Now they have to adapt to a whole new person.
For sure. I think so. I think to what you said, if you can have that conversation, right, with your ex to kind of say, hey, what do you think's going on there? Then you can kind of like together come up with what's going to happen.
Yeah,
Because the first and foremost, the ideal scenario is that your kid is comfortable in all the places that they have to be. That's what we want. So something to keep in mind is if you, I think what you said, Chloe, is getting underneath it, not making the assumption, especially if your ex is like really difficult and you really don't get along and you're not happy about your ex having a new girlfriend, hearing that your kid doesn't like them, it's hard not to be a little happy about that. So you want to just keep in mind um, that you are keeping it right, that you want your kid to be comfortable there. And first, is distinguishing if this is a real issue, like if it's dangerous and something is going on there, that's a very different scenario than they just don't
yeah,
like it. Because
yeah,
frankly, there's going to be a lot of situations that our kids just don't like, and teaching them, using this as an opportunity to teach them, this is how we handle things that we don't always like.
yeah,
And you know what? Maybe you don't like this about her, but here's some other things. And that's a good way for them to learn how to deal with anybody.
absolutely.
So that's sort of I think, the angle again, helping your kid be okay in whatever their situation is
And giving them time. I
and
think, like
giving them
everybody,
time, right?
they have to get
Yeah.
used to things. A lot of the time we want them to embrace the new partner overnight, and it's still a stranger to them. And for the dad, he's been in a relationship with this girlfriend for a number of months and he knows her really well, but the kid has never seen her, and suddenly she's his stepmom, and he has to like
Right. And
accept her
they're sharing
presence.
a bathroom. Right.
It,
It's a lot for someone to have in their home and their space and get
yeah,
comfortable with. Yeah,
and
that's right. Giving it
sometimes they
time.
feel, and sorry, I was saying, sometimes they feel like they're competing also for their father's attention in that context. They used to go to dad's house and be alone with him, and suddenly there's another woman and he's giving her attention
Yeah.
too. And so it could be quite difficult for the children to accept that there's that additional presence.
Yes, absolutely. Everything takes time. And I think that goes to our first point, like there's no rush here.
Yeah,
If you're dealing with this, like if it's your ex and you have any input, I would say like there's no rush. Like just take your time with it, figure out what's going to make sense. If you're in the relationship, there's no rush.
yeah,
Give your kids like everything in its due time. I think when people rush it and they feel this urgency to get in a new relationship and get it going and hit those milestones, they start forgetting to consider how much this impacts their kids and their co-parenting
for
relationship,
sure.
and it can make their challenges. And again, this is one of those areas in co-parenting we just don't, there's not a lot of resources. You're not going to go to court because you don't like your ex's new girlfriend. Like I mean, unless they're being abusive in some way
Yeah,
or violating a law. So it's one of those things we just kind of have to learn how to manage it and help our
yeah.
kids through it.
That's a good point. There is no legal remedy to these kind of situations. You just have to iron them
Iron them
out
out on
with your,
your
or
own. Yeah. And that can
be
be
the best
very
parent.
frustrating. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
So actually, I'm conscious of time. There was another point we wanted to discuss, which is actually the other side of the coin. And that's more of a challenge for the mother in this scenario. But what happens when the child embraces this new person too much and really
Yeah.
likes them? And that can be really hard for the mother in this context. Of feeling like she's been replaced, feeling like the other, the husband has suddenly, rebuilt his life and she's left behind and she hasn't necessarily found somebody new yet. And it's a challenge. And that can be one of those situations where, again, thinking about your kid and what's best for them objectively, it's wonderful if they like this new person, right?
Right.
That's
Right.
kind of what you want to happen, even if it hurts and even if you're jealous.
Yeah.
For your kid, that is the best outcome.
Yeah.
So it's a difficult situation. But what would you advise to somebody who's going through that and
Yeah, I
having
think
a hard
what you
time
said,
feeling?
it is the best scenario. However, I think when we're feeling insecure about our role as a parent, it's not really about the other person anymore. It's about our own insecurities. And like, if you're a great mom and you know you're a great mom, who cares if your kid also is enjoying this other person? It's yours. So getting very clear on your own value as a parent and feeling strong and confident in what you bring to the table and your relationship with your kid, that's how I feel it makes it a lot easier to swallow. It's like it's a lot easier to be around someone who's in great shape when you're feeling in great shape,
Yeah.
right? And much harder when you're not feeling great in your body.
Yeah.
This is the same. If you feel good about your role as a mom or a dad, right, you're going to feel less threatened by the role that the other person is taking in your child's life. That's
Yeah.
been my personal experience.
And as you said earlier, it's a new person, a new parental figure in their life, a new
Right, it's
positivity
exciting.
to it. Somebody who's
Yeah,
going to love them and care for them. That's wonderful for your kids, you know, and if they're open to it, it's always going to be a plus for them. And as you say, a lot of the challenges that people face in this kind of context comes down to their own sense of how far along they've come and how they're comparing them, and it's very common for people to compare themselves to their
yeah,
ex, typically in finding a new partner, but also in general, how are they doing, you know, oh, why am I feeling heartbroken and he or she seems to be thriving. It's part of the grieving process, and it's difficult to accept, but it kind of goes away with time.
yeah. For sure. For sure. That goes back everything in time. It really does. It really does kind of flow and to give things that time because that will make this process a lot easier for everybody. So it sounds like in summary, just or if anyone has any other questions, I'm not sure if there's a few people still on, please ask us some more questions. I think in summary, kind of what we're saying is, right, it's, you want to take your time with it, keep it child focused, discuss as much as possible and get on the same page with your ex as you can. And when you can't, doing the best that you can to put your own feelings aside so that you can help your child feel as comfortable as possible with this new person.
Yeah, always the children at the center. That
Yeah.
needs to be your top consideration.
Yeah.
And I know that as
Even when
parents,
it's hard. Yeah. Yeah.
but our feelings do take over
Yes,
sometimes.
they
So it's not
do.
always
Even when they're understandable.
good.
So, all right. Any final questions? Anything? We've got like 2 minutes left. Any final questions from anyone online about your ex and a new partner?
Any situation that you've had that's been particularly tricky? Oh, I think we
I
might be
think
done
we're
then,
all
Julie.
set. And if anyone has any questions at any point, please send us, DM, send a message, follow us on on Instagram, Chloe O Divorce Coach, Coach Julie Beckerman. We're going to be doing these once a month. Anything that you want to hear about, we want to be here to kind of share some information with you. So.
Yeah, share with us some ideas if you've had a particularly tricky situation in terms of co-parenting. We'd love to address it. We're looking for lots of interesting themes to address because there's a lot of challenges that arise in post-divorce
There's
co-parenting.
no end to the challenges. So,
Wonderful.
all
Well, thank you
right.
all very much. Thank you for joining. And thanks, Julie.
Bye, Chloe. Thanks,
Bye.
guys.